Thank you, Elizabeth, for that kind introduction. And thanks to Michael Bramsness for helping to organize this event and get us here. And thanks to the commune of Vejle and to all of you for coming to join us. I have some time to spend with you, which is great. And this is a great day for us to be in Vejle, and we had a wonderful night last night at the hotel. But it's a great day because my book, The Flight of the Creative Class, has just been published in Danish, and I just saw the first copy, so I was very happy. And then I have a new book, which I'll show you. I only have one, and I'll talk to you. It's brand new. It's called Who's Your City? This is the only one that exists, but you could pre-order it, and it comes out in March 19th. So you could pre-order it sometime. Anyway, I want to tell you, here it is. I'm sorry. Just so you know, this is what the Danish version of Flight of the Creative Class looks like. And I'm very proud of that. I'm also very happy because we now have collaborators in Scandinavia. We have good collaborators in Sweden, Charlotta Melander at John Skipping, but just established or reestablished a very close collaboration with two researchers at Copenhagen Business School, Mark Lorentzen and Christina Andersen, and actually Christina's back in Toronto at our institute at the business school in Toronto. And we've been very, very, very fortunate because we have been able now over the past 3 or 4 months to begin to systematically compare North American and Scandinavian communities and the US and Canada and Denmark and Norway and Sweden and other countries. And hopefully in the next year, we'll have a very, very, very good partnership with Denmark and also with other countries around the world. So this is a great day for us. I'm going to tell you about all 3 books. I'm going to tell you the story of how I got the idea to write Rise of the Creative Class. I want to tell you a bit about Flight of the Creative Class, and then I don't want to leave Denmark without at least telling you a little bit about the new book. For most of my career, and I've been a professor since 1984, and I started my graduate studies in 1979. So it's a pretty long time, and for most of that career, I was a pretty conventional economist. When I looked at economic development and how communities, countries, regions, cities, communes grow, like most everyone else who does that, I said, if you want to grow your city, in your town, you have to create jobs. And if you want to create jobs, you have to bring companies, manufacturing companies, service companies. And often to do that, you have to provide economic, financial, tax incentives. I've studied for some 20 years this issue of economic restructuring, deindustrialization, the out-migration of factories. I did big projects on industrial reorganization, revitalization, and restructuring. And in my thinking, I was pretty conventional until I moved to Pittsburgh and saw what was happening in that town. And I know you here have gone through an economic restructuring, that your history has been one of manufacturing and industry until 1973 and then in 1982. But when I moved to Pittsburgh in 1984, the community had been literally hit by an economic tsunami of deindustrialization and restructuring. Pittsburgh, as you might know, was really the center of America's industrial revolution. Outside of New York City, it was the second richest community in North America. It had wealthy families like the Carnegies and the Mellons and many others. It was the center of the rise of the North American steel industry. It was close to iron ore and natural resources and had all of the capabilities, the river and the ports to produce steel. It was not only a great steel community, it had one of the world's greatest electronics companies at the time, a company founded by George Westinghouse that made pioneering advances in television and broadcasting and even in what we now know as flat panel display technology. It was a center of materials production with Alcoa in aluminum. chemistry, all the way to food processing with companies like Heinz, the foods company. But in the late 1970s and early 1980s, and if you're from this region of the world, you know what that's like, the whole economy was hit by global competition. Pittsburgh lost 150,000 manufacturing jobs in the course of just 3 years. And as that economic restructuring took place, it saw its population, which had reached a peak of nearly 900,000, be reduced in chunks of 100,000. From 900,000, it went to 800,000, to 700,000, to 600,000, to 500,000. The population of Pittsburgh today is about 330,000. So the question on the minds of city leadership in the mid to late 1980s was, how do you revitalize a community that had once been a strong blue-collar industrial area into a post-industrial, information-intensive, technology-based, service kind of economy? They developed a path-breaking strategy. And what they said was, although the manufacturing plants had closed, Pittsburgh had research and development laboratories of the steel companies, of Westinghouse, of Alcoa. It also was a center of natural resource production, Gulf Oil, a center of aerospace with the Rockwell Aerospace Company, and it had great universities. Carnegie Mellon, where I taught for nearly 20 years, which is a terrific university in computing and electrical and software engineering and robotics, and the University of Pittsburgh, where Jonas Salk invented the polio vaccine, which is superb in medicine, biomedicine, and biotech. The idea was, if you could put these research laboratories together with the innovative capabilities of the universities, you could begin to spur what we thought of as an entrepreneurial, high-tech business formation. You could build what people call a cluster. I had written a book called The Breakthrough Illusion. I had studied the Silicon Valley, the Boston area around the Route 128 Beltway that surrounds Boston, Austin, Texas, Seattle, high-tech districts throughout Europe and Scandinavia. And the idea was the university and these research activities could become a core of this cluster. In Pittsburgh, we built a whole economic development system to support that. We set up the world's first council of high technology businesses. That council, the Pittsburgh High Technology Council, has been emulated all over North America and all over the world. We set up the first program of state or provincial government which would connect university and industry research and development. We called it the Ben Franklin Partnership. And the idea was you could get funding if you did industry-university joint research. We set up entrepreneurial assistance programs, business incubation centers, technology transfer and commercialization units at both of the major universities. And by this time, it was the late 1980s and the early 1990s. And the model looked like it was becoming a terrific success. The universities were beginning to produce the kinds of talent that could be attracted to and form cutting-edge, high-tech entrepreneurial businesses. A fellow that I started at university with as a professor went on to become the head of all research and development at Microsoft. He still holds that position. Another fellow took the same sort of position at Apple. The person who's now the head of Google was a Carnegie Mellon PhD, and many similar people were beginning to start companies right near the university to spin off their research and their technology development into companies nearby the university. I looked in the early 1990s, and Carnegie Mellon had produced well over 100 spin-off companies in